Creating waterfall charts in Excel 2016 and 2010. Waterfall charts have taken the finance, have caught the imagination of the finance world because they allow you to depict inflows and outflows, or rather they began with depicting inflows and outflows of cash through a company. So as you can see on the screen, I have two images there, and if you have a starting balance and you have cash coming in and cash going out, you can depict them by a series of downgoing bars and upgoing bars, and by that principle, by that logic, you can reach a final closing balance at the end of a period. So it graphically depicts how something like cash or inventory or anything flows in and out of a organization, and then it allows you to see how it what was the closing balance. This is not only used for cash flow or inventory flows, it can also be used for strategic planning. So for example, you have a planned profit, and then a series of variances, that is due to various reasons. You could have negative and positive variances, and then you have the actual profit achieved. So it can also be used for strategic planning. So anything that shows an opening and a closing and how things moved in between that opening and closing is a chart like this. And it has been given a name, or rather popularly called as a waterfall chart. Some people call it a bridge chart. And because it has become so popular, Excel decided to introduce it as a native chart in version 2016. In versions prior to 2016, it did not exist in Excel. Now, because it did not exist in Excel, many workarounds were created to create this chart in Excel. And actually, it's not as hard as it looks, even if it did not exist in Excel. So in version 2016, you have a waterfall chart as a native chart. You can simply select it from the menu. But in versions prior to 2016, you have to arrange the data series through a dummy series, through a formula. So what you do is, you actually, of course, you have starting and ending terminals. So that is one series. You can see they are blue. So that's one series in a chart. Then you have net incoming series. So the green bars here are is an incoming series or net positive series, and then you have a net negative series. So wherever cash went down, that's a third series, and then you have a fourth series that you cannot see. So for example, in Excel versions prior to 2016, there's no way for a column like this to be floating in midair. It cannot be floating in midair. It's actually built upon another column which is just below it. And the only thing is that this column is now transparent. So it is held up by this transparent column, and which I'm calling a dummy series. Now the crux of the whole thing is calculating the height of this dummy series. And that's where the entire calculation in creating a waterfall chart lies. The ability to calculate the height of a dummy series. Now before we actually go into Excel to work on this, I'm going to show you how to determine the height of this dummy series, because that's the crux of the whole thing. Everything else is simply an arrangement of a chart. So let's look at it. On this little graphic that I have here on the slide, the purple columns are columns in which there was a net negative cash flow. That means cash went out. The green columns are those in which there was a net positive cash flow. So with that understanding, let's look at the dummy in a negative month. So in a negative month, in this month, let me use another color here. In this month where cash went down, the closing balance after the cash went down is here. So when cash goes down, the height of the dummy is exactly equal to the current month's closing balance. Here too, cash went down. That was the closing balance, and the height of the dummy is the closing balance. Again here, cash went down, and that was the closing balance. So obviously the dummy will be the closing balance. In a month where cash goes up, this is now the closing balance. But the dummy is not, the dummy is here. So in a month where cash goes up, you'll notice that the dummy is the previous month's closing balance. So in a month where cash goes up, the dummy column is the previous month's closing balance. In a month where cash goes down, the dummy is the current month's closing balance. Or if you'd like to look at it a different way, it is always the lesser of this month plus last month. So I'm just putting the two closing balances here. So that's this month, that's last month. So the dummy is the lesser of the two. That would be the dummy for this green column. Let's take another example here and here. So the dummy for this column is the lesser of these two, which is this one. So the dummy is always the lesser of this month's closing balance and last month's closing balance. Now that we've understood that, we can go to Excel and actually work this out. So remember, we're going to do this in 2010 because waterfall charts were not a native chart in 2010. So let me take you to Excel 2010 to try this out. So as I said, today's workshop is not hands-on. It's only a 1 hour workshop. But at the end of this workshop, I will not only you will have access to the recording, but I will also upload this Excel file so that you can play around with it whenever you like. So here I have a dummy cash flow, and I have an opening balance, I have net cash flow, and I have a closing balance. Now to be able to construct this in 2010, as I said, you have to arrange the data series. So you have to break up this data series and you have to arrange it in 4 different ways. Let's put this back on the screen. So I need 4 series: start and end terminals, a net positive cash flow series, a net negative cash flow series, and a dummy base. So 4 of them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reorganize this like this. I'm going to put the first one, I'm going to say terminals or pillars or whatever you want to call them. So we'll call that's for the opening and closing. The next series I'm going to say is the dummy base. The third series I'm going to say net positive, and the fourth is net negative. Now we have our 4. I'm going to take you back to PowerPoint for a moment to point out something else. The negative columns, although they are negative cash flow, in the chart or in the graph, they are plotted as positive. Because if you plotted them as negative, they would be here. They would be plotted below the 0 line. So they would plot here. So even though they are negative bars, you plot them as positive on top. Remember, they're piled up on top of the dummy. So they may appear to be negative, but they're actually in the graph, you're plotting them as positive. Okay, so when we bring the data in here, when we bring this here, we're going to have to convert it to a positive number. Otherwise, it'll be plotted below the 0 line. So the first thing I'm going to do is opening balance. Okay, and I'm also going to put balance. You'll notice that I've calculated this last item is separate from these because this one is not going to be included in the graph. It's just there for calculation. Also opening, and then January, and I'll take it right up to maybe August. You can close it anywhere you like. You can take it up to August, September. Let's go right up to December. Okay, there we go. So right up to December, and then I'll close. Okay, so this is our arrangement of data for the chart. And now I'm going to build in what we know. So first of all, we know that our opening balance is $5,000. So I'm just going to type that in there. And just let's take a look at the data. Here, that's the only thing I know right now is that my opening balance is 5,000. So I stay with that. And the terminal is, of course, the opening terminal is equal to the opening balance. So that's fine. We'll also do that for the closing balance. We'll say the terminal is equal to the closing balance. And that currently it's 0. Now we'll calculate net positive. So starting in January, we're going to calculate net positive, and I'm going to say if the January cash flow, that is B14, if B14 was positive, if B14 is positive, that is greater than 0, then use B14, but else use 0. So if B14 is positive, bring it here, else put a 0 there. Press enter. So only the positive values will come here. So there you go. All the positive cash flows have come here. Wherever there's a negative cash flow, it shows 0. The next series is the negative series. So here I'm going to say if B14 is less than 0, so then use B14, else 0. Okay, and so we have negative cash flows. But now, so we have the negative cash flows appearing here. But if you remember, I told you that although they are negative, in the chart, we want them to be positive. We'll call them negative, but when plotting them, we'll have to plot them as positive. So I'm really going to modify this formula and multiply it by -1. So all the negative cash flows will now appear here. So a quick check to make sure that wherever you have a number here, you have zeros there. Wherever you have a number here, you have a 0 here. So it should alternate. So in other words, we've split that series into 2 series. One is an upgoer, one is a downcomer. Now that we have that, the next step is to calculate the closing balances for every month. So we opened with 5,000, and our balance every month is equals the previous balance plus the positive cash flow minus the negative cash flow. So that's going to be our balance every month. Previous balance plus incoming cash minus outgoing cash. Press enter, and we'll copy that right across to December, right to the end actually. So right to the end, and we'll end with 3020, which, since we linked it earlier, that's going to be our closing balance. All right, so far so good. So we've done 3 series. We still have to do the dummy base. Now, as I said, the dummy base is the lesser of this month and last month, or last category. So we simply have to do equals minimum of this month's balance and last month's balance, this month's balance and last month's balance. So current balance and previous balance. The lesser of current balance and previous balance will give you the base. And you press enter there, and you copy that right across to December. So that's now given us the base. So let me zoom out a little bit. So now we have our 4 series in place. And this balance was only to help us to calculate the dummy base. We don't need it in the chart, so we're going to leave it out of the chart. Now all that we need to do, so here's where we begin to actually use our charting skills. And we are going to select all of this and go insert column. We'll say stacked column. So we're going to remember the bars have to be built on top of each other. So we'll say stacked column. So we'll build a stacked column chart. And as soon as we build a stacked column chart, this is what our chart is going to look like. We will make this look a little better by adding a title. So I'm going to add a title from the layout menu of my chart tools. Here are the chart tools. So whenever you've selected a chart, the chart tools will appear, and on the layout menu you can go there and chart title, we're going to say above chart, and we'll add our title as cash flow through the year. We also are going to now make sure that we only show net negative and net positive. We don't need we don't need all this extra information here, the dummy base and terminals and all that. So we'll do that in a moment. So what we're going to do is the first and the most important thing here is to make this dummy base disappear. And to make that dummy base transparent, it's much simpler than what it might seem. All you do is click it, that is the red columns, and you can see that I've clicked it, the little dots around it, and then I go to the Home tab of my ribbon, and in the Home tab of my ribbon, this is the fill color here. I just select that and say no fill. And as soon as I say no fill, the base has disappeared. And there essentially is my waterfall chart. Now all that remains is a little bit of tweaking to make sure that it looks nice. So first of all, I'm going to delete the legend. So here are a few steps that I will do without really explaining them because they're self-explanatory. I'm going to delete the dummy base legend. So I click it and delete it. I also don't want this thing to say terminals, so I'm going to delete that. And I'm going to, so this one, net negative and net positive is fine. I can also change the color. So I want downcoming columns to be red instead of purple. So I'm going to select those. And again, from the Home tab, I'm going to select red. I'll select a darker red. So there we go. So that's red down, green is up. And I'd like to also get the bars a little closer to each other. So one of the things you want to remember when you want to tweak any of these, this is called a data series. So anytime you want to tweak any of the series, you just need to right click on them and say Format Data Series. And it'll open to the series options where you have series overlap and gap width. All we need to do is to reduce the gap between them. And you reduce the gap, you bring them closer together like a real waterfall chart. So there we are. So that's our chart. The next thing to do is, if you like, you can add labels to them. So I want to add only for the blue ones. So I'm going to select the blue ones and I'm going to right click and I say add data labels. And I'll just drag this above them. There we go. So that gives us, that's essentially the waterfall chart that we created in version 2010. Now, just to let you know, so that you can remember all these steps and to see how easy it is, of course, you can embellish this any way you like. You can add reasons below each of the downcoming columns. You can add little annotations to say why the cache went down, and so many other things you can do. One of the things that you might want to do is, because this took us 5 or 6 steps to do this, one of the things you might want to do is save it as a template. So once you've created all this, you can go to the Design tab of the Chart Tools and Save as Template. So when I save it as a template, I'll save it in my Templates folder, and I'm going to call it my waterfall. One thing I should not be doing when let me cancel that. Before I save it as a template, let me remove this chart title and add back the chart title. One of the things you don't want to do when saving as a template is to customize it or add anything specific, because when you save it as a template, it should all be generic stuff, anything that can be applied to any data. So I took off that specific title, and now I'm going to save it as a template, and I'm going to call it my waterfall. So next time I want to use this chart, I don't need to have it on screen. I just make sure that my data is in exactly the same arrangement, and I go to Insert, Any Chart, but I go to All Chart Types right at the bottom. And I go to Templates. There's my waterfall. Click that, click OK. There's my chart. So one step. So once you've created and saved it as a template, next time you need to create it, it's just one click. As long as you've arranged your data, it's just one click, and it's so easy to recreate. Now, with that, we've we've completed the exercise on version 2010. Remember, I said 2010, but you can use this in 2007. You can use this in version 2013 as well. So that was 2010. I'm going to move now to 2016, and I'm going to save this. I'm going to save this file. Let me just recreate the chart. For some reason, it got deleted. I'm going to put it back. And I'm now going to switch over to 2016. Before I switch over to 2016, if you have any questions, please let me know. We've reached about the halfway point of our webinar. So if you have any questions on 2010, please feel free to let me know through the chat window. If not, I'm going to take 1 minute to close Excel 2010 and open Excel 2016. Okay, so now here's the same file that I just saved. Here's the same file in version 2016. This is the one we just created in version 2010, and that's there. We're going to do the same thing now in version 2016. Now, I have it open in version 2016, and I want to call your attention to the fact that in version 2016, we have on the insert menu, we have waterfall chart as a native chart. So there it is. And if I drop down that little button, you'll see it says waterfall. You also have a funnel chart, you have sunburst charts, you have tree map charts, you have so many new charts which have appeared in version 2016. But the waterfall is a built-in type. Now you cannot use the same arrangement of data series as we did for 2010 because Excel has a different arrangement of data that it wants if you're using the native built-in chart. So let me scroll down to a different set of data here. Exactly the same data, but we're going to arrange it differently. So we have opening balance, we have cash flow, we have closing balance. So for 2016, this is what you need to do. 2016, you need to create opening and the months. I'm just copying them from here. And then you need to do a closing. Pretty much like we did in the previous one, but the rest of the series are going to be different. So the categories remain the same. Sorry, the categories remain the same. The series are going to be different. The series are simply going to be cash value. So it's just a cash value. And the opening balance is going to be the same as what we have, that is 5,000. And the net cash flow is just copied from here or linked. You can link it or copy it to your original data. So here, you don't have all positives. Here you go negative, wherever it's negative, it's negative. Wherever it's positive, it's positive. So you stay with that. And closing balance is simply the sum of everything. Or you could copy this closing balance down here. So whatever you like, you can do. To make it accurate, I simply take a sum of my opening balance plus all the cash flows through the year should give me a closing balance. So there we go. So a single series of data for the chart. And you're actually going to laugh when you see how easy this is in version 2016. I'll select the data here like this, and I go insert waterfall, click it, and there we go. There's our waterfall. You'll notice that we have a little bit of an anomaly there. We have to change that in a moment. We're going to have to do 1 or 2 more steps before we complete this. Now, once we've done this, we'll take this aside to show you a few things. So the first of all, we have a chart title here. We don't need to save this as a template because this is a built-in type in version 2016. If you like to put your legend at the bottom, you'll notice one of the things in version 2016, I guess because this is a new chart type that has been introduced, all the features are not yet available. So if I want to move this legend, it just doesn't allow me to move it. I'm stuck with it being here at the top. If I want to change it, I have to go to something called the quick layout, and I have to go to something like this, which puts the legend at the bottom. So you can only move things around with the quick layout button. You have very little flexibility about how this chart is displayed. In the previous method that I used with version 2010, I could move things around, change them, change the appearance as I like. But in 2016, you're pretty much stuck with using the quick layouts and the style gallery for this particular chart. Now that we've got that in place, okay, let me just put that down there. So there it goes. Now, oh, it's got rid of our data labels. So I'm going to bring that back, add data labels to all. Now here's where you need to change the terminals, this one and this one. You got to manually tell Excel that those are opening and closing balances. So the first thing you do is you click the blue column, the first one. Since it's all one series, all of them will be selected. Then you click it again. So now only that one column is selected. And then you right click on it and say set as total. So that becomes green. Then you do the same thing for the next one, the last one, 3020. Right click on it and say set as total. So there you go. So there's your waterfall chart once again, exactly as we did in 2010. Of course, the colors are a bit reversed here, but you can change them around as you like. So for example, if you like this, you have to do it column by column. So that's a bit of a pain. You'll have to go here and say format data point and change the fill to a different color as you like. So you can do that. You can tweak this chart, the colors and things like that as you like. But pretty much it's so simple to use in 2016. It's just one series. Now, I'm going to show you one more application of a waterfall. Remember, you can do this in 2010 as well. I'm using 2016 simply because it's faster to use in 2016. I'm going to show you a different application. Both the charts we've done so far have all been cash flows. I'm going to show you a different application. So here we have another set of data just below this, where I'm using it for business planning or business reporting. My planned profit for the year was $5,000, and the actual profit when we started, we presumed it was going to be 5,000, and then for various reasons, so let's see what those reasons are. Domestic sales failed, so that gave us an impact of -850 on our profit. So because of domestic sales, our profit was going to go down by 4150. International sales went really well, so they added 1060 to our profit. Interest costs went up, so it gave us a hit of 2000 on our profit, and so on. So each of these are different reasons why our profit took a hit or our profit was better. And at the end of the year, we actually achieved a profit of 3060. So reasons why our profit was not 5,000 as expected are these. So all you do is you select this and you copy it down here, and I select this and I copy it into here. So now I have one series of data, and I select this and I go insert waterfall, and I go waterfall chart. There's my chart. I'll just drag it down a bit. And set this one, set as total. The last one set as total. And there you go. So we have the annual plan was 5,000. Domestic sales hit us by 850. International sales helped us by 1060, and so on. And at the end of the year, we achieved a result of 3060. So here is an example of using the waterfall type for business planning and business reporting. So anything where you have levels and you have inflows and outflows showing a start and an end is a prime candidate for using these kind of charts. So with that, really, I wanted to show you two different ways of doing the same thing. Remember, the version the one that I showed you for 2010 is the more involved version, but that's the one I would tell you to explore a bit more, because the principles that we worked on for creating this chart in version 2010 are used not only for waterfall charts, they are used for a whole range of conditional charts. So it's actually building conditionality in the chart, where we went from one series into two series, one positive and one negative. So the same principles are used for creating a whole range of various kinds of conditional charts. So practice those principles. Even if you do have 2016, practice doing the waterfall chart the 2010 way, because you can use those same methods in various other charts. So with that, I have actually completed all that I set out to do. We've done this actually in less time than I thought it would take us to do. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me now. If you'd like to see this, anything else, let me know right now. In the meantime, yes, there's a question. Would it be possible to add arrows to show up and down movement of cash or profit? Very easy, actually. So here, if I want to add up and down arrows in 2010, in the 2010 method, all I need to do is go to Insert. And so just for the benefit of everyone, there's a question which has come up from one of our participants. Would it be possible to add arrows instead of columns? So it's very, very easy to do that. We go to Insert, and I go to Shapes, and I'm going to take a down arrow. I'm going to draw it here, and then I'm going to take another one, Insert, Shapes. I'm going to take an up arrow. All right, so I have a down arrow and an up arrow. I'm going to take the green for the down arrow. I'm going to take red for the down arrow. Now all you need to do is, let's do the down arrow first. So select the down arrow, right click on it and copy it. Then click on the red columns and paste it using Control V. So remember, don't try to look for a paste button, just press Control V. And then when I do that, Control V, you see down arrows. I'll do the same thing for this. Copy, click on the green ones and Control V, and I have up arrows there. So you can embellish these charts any way you like with graphics. Some people like them, some people don't. So it depends on your individual organization, what's accepted practice. Anything like this you want, you can do. For example, chart titles. The chart title, I don't know about 2016, I haven't tried it. Yes, chart titles can be linked also to a cell. So say, for example, you want to give an explanation of why the profit went down from 5,000 to 3,220, or why the cash went down. You could put that in the chart title itself. So you click the chart title such that it has a solid border. Then you click inside the in the formula bar, and you type an equal sign there. Or you can't do it in version 2016. See, this is a very new chart in 2016, so they've limited some of the flexibility. But let me show you that in 2010. You can select the chart title here and click inside the formula bar, go equals, and click on a cell. Let's say I'll click on C10. Now, whatever I type in C10, I'll type cash falls because of increase inventory. You'll see that has now become the title of my chart. So you can control that title, and you can control any other annotation on your chart through a cell. in Excel. And then you can use the if function in that cell to program that title and whatever else you like. So you have an enormous amount of flexibility around any of these Excel charts. So excellent. If you have any other questions, please let me know. I'm going to save this file one more time. Let me just undo the colors there so that you have it as it was. Let me save this file. Okay, if there are any other questions, please let me know. If you don't have any questions, you'll see this file being appearing in your materials panel in just a minute. So I'm going to do that in just this next minute, and I'm going to freeze the screen for a moment. You won't see me doing it, but you'll see the Excel file appearing in your materials panel of your control panel, and you'll also see the PDF file appearing at the same time. So give me 1 minute to do that, and I'll resume talking in 1 minute's time. Okay, before I do that, there's another question that's come up. Is there a way to include explanations for each column using a cell as you did for the title? Yes, there is a way. So what you do is you add for each column here. So say, for example, you want to add an explanation for this column. You select that one column, and let's take the down column, so this red column. You select that one column and you say add data label. And you can say add data label or add data callout, whatever you like. So let's say we add a data callout, and we can bring it here. Okay, so we've added a data callout there, and I'm going to drag it there. So we've added a data callout. You'll see that the data callout is showing us, okay, data callout is only in version 2016. I'm just going to say, oops, I deleted the whole. We just delete that label. We're going to simply say add data label. So I'm adding a data label there, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to select that data label, and that data label I'm going to type equals, same thing, select it as I did in the previous case, type equals and click on a cell, and now it is linked to that cell. So if I type it in here, I would say product failed, and that will appear on the explanation. So you could link a data label for an individual column also to a cell, just as I did for the title. Okay, so I'm going to, once again, as I said, I'm just going to undo all this so that I can give you a clean file, and I'm saving this file. And I'm going to now pause my screen, and then I'll upload this file for you. And I'm also going to, at this point, I'm also going to give you a copy of the PDF file that I told you. So hang on a moment, and you'll get that in just a moment. Once again, thank you all very much for participating. I hope you've had a pleasant experience, and I wish you all the very best for the rest of the week. I will stop the recording now, and I will answer any further questions after we do that.